Welcome back, listeners, to Red Hunt, where I delve into captivating relationship stories from Reddit, giving you a front row seat to fascinating experiences. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the hunt. Don't turn on our natural gas boiler in winter? Fine, we'll use electricity. My ex-wife and I were both students, near Calgary, Alberta, and rented a basement suite that the landlords had converted from an unfinished basement plus garage space. Rent included utilities and internet. The only problem: the house was on a boiler, and when they walled in the suite to separate it from the garage, they installed the thermostat in the garage instead of in the suite. This led to several problems the following winter. Every time the temperature got below -10 degrees Celsius, about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, our suite would plummet to 12-14 degrees Celsius. We brought it to their attention each time, and for 48 hours after that, it was a balmy 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, in our apartment. This kept happening though, and we kept complaining. After the 5th or 6th time, we told them that we couldn't even keep things comfortable with a space heater. We added that it would cost a few dollars a month more in gas to heat our apartment properly. Running a space heater would cost much more than that. They apologized, and once again we had heat for a couple days. Then we had a cold snap and the temperature dropped to 40 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Outside in our apartment plummeted to 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We were so cold that we started wearing our coats, not just sweaters or even jackets, inside. That was the last straw. So my wife and I decided to stop complaining and take matters into our own hands. We bought a large box fan, opened the oven, and placed the fan on its door. We turned on the oven and within an hour or two had a reasonable 19 degrees Celsius, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, in our apartment. We kept the temperature around 18-20 degrees Celsius, 64-68 degrees Fahrenheit, throughout the cold snap, about 2 weeks. Some warm weather followed for the next few weeks, and then we got a knock on our door. It was the landlord. Turns out, their electric bill was $650, up from their usual peak of $100. Now, something to know about the law in Alberta: if utilities are included in rent, you cannot charge the tenant for overages, whether reasonable or not. You can only sue if they were willfully negligent. I pointed this out to the landlord and they threatened to sue, idiotically believing us to be the negligent ones. I replied that I'm sure a city inspector would be happy to hear about your illegal basement suite, in which you didn't even have the decency to install a thermostat, and how, as a result, we've had to endure temperatures closer to freezing than to room temperature, and then threatened to countersue. And finished with, who do you think is gonna win that fight? Suffice to say, we had a nice, cozy, and reasonable 21-25 degrees Celsius, 70-77 degrees Fahrenheit, in our suite for the remainder of the winter. Damn, that sounds like a nightmare situation with the heating. Good on you guys for taking matters into your own hands with the fan and oven combo. And props for standing up to the landlords when they tried to pull a fast one with the utility bill. Can't blame them for wanting to sue after that massive electric bill jump though. Am I the antagonist for wanting to set a limit for how many days my boyfriend's mom can stay with us? I recently moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend Austin. We had lived together before, but now we have a guest room. I work from home, so my home also serves as my office. Austin is an only child raised by his single mom Emery. He loves his mom immensely and sees no faults in her. When he was 16-17, Emery moved in with her boyfriend, leaving Austin to live alone for several months. I believe my boyfriend wants to make up for the lost time. Emery recently visited us for 16 days, arriving 3 days after we moved in. I realized during her stay that 16 days was way beyond what I was comfortable with. My main challenge was that Emery showed no interest in getting to know me. This was only the 3rd time I had met her, but she barely acknowledged my presence. She directed all her questions and comments exclusively to Austin. It was evident from her body language and lack of eye contact that she was closed off towards me. One day, we took her to a friend's house for Christmas, and she behaved completely differently. She was talkative, bubbly, and charming with all the friends present, despite only having met them that day. Considering I was her son's first girlfriend in 10 years, I expected her to want to know more about me. However, all her inquiries about me were made behind my back. Additionally, I overheard her asking Austin about a friend who FaceTimed me, and she asked why I take antidepressants and if I had experienced any trauma. On one of the nights, she complained about not sitting next to Austin, even though I was sitting beside her. Following a disagreement between Austin and me over Emery's friends staying with us, she overheard and proceeded to not speak a word to me in my own home for 4 days. Austin and I discussed whether there should be a maximum duration for guests in our house, which would apply to all visitors. I believe 5 days is a generous limit, considering that after staying for 7 consecutive nights, a guest legally becomes a tenant in our state. I do not want someone else to have tenant rights over my home. I mentioned that if Emery wanted to stay longer, she could get a hotel for the remaining days, but she couldn't afford it, and Austin didn't want to pay for it. However, Austin made it clear that the one exception to this rule would be Emery. I explained to him that it would be obliterating the rule rather than an exception, since Emery was the main reason for proposing it in the first place. He He sees this as non-negotiable, and there is no maximum limit for how long his mom can stay with us. He mentioned that those 16 days were the happiest he had been in 10 years. Am I the antagonist for wanting to establish a limit on her stay? It's our home, and I believe we should find a compromise, but he refuses to budge because he has tunnel vision when it comes to his mom? It's completely understandable that you would want to set a maximum duration for guests, especially after Emery's lengthy stay. It's concerning that she showed no interest in getting to know you and made you feel uncomfortable in your own home. Your suggestion of 5 days seems more than fair, and it's important for your boyfriend to understand and respect your boundaries. Am I the antagonist for locking my nearly 23-year-old stepdaughter out of the house after her ongoing disrespect? This is not the first time we've made requests of my adult stepdaughter who's working as a server living with us the last 9 months after dropping out of college. She's usually the last one home at night, and closing the door between the driveway and garage has become a challenge. Several times in the last 12 weeks, it is inches ajar the next day. Recently I explained in cold weather mice, vermin, skunk are likely to come in and nest. We asked her to close and lock the door, hoping this would help follow through. Working long hours, we often don't see her for more than a few minutes in a day. We've taken to texting photos of the messes left behind. She's a great slob, asking for her help consideration. She constantly apologizes without modifying her behavior to the point where my wife, her mom, told her some weeks back, "I don't believe you. I don't believe you are sorry because you are not modifying your behavior." I began using this terminology myself. This resulted in occasions where I sent photos of problems only for them to be ignored. When confronted, we got the reply, "Well, I didn't know what to say, because if I said I was sorry you wouldn't believe it, so I just said nothing." We let her know that no reply was worse than any other option at all. She's been on our phone bill paying $15 a month for unlimited everything with a top-tier carrier, the best phone deal anyone could have, but required nudging many months for payment. Again, she is currently making $1,000 per week. It has been made clear to her that not responding to our texts and/or not staying current with her bill will result in dropping her from the plan. My wife has been out of town this week and we've had a really good week. I've been taking favorite dinner requests from her for the nights she has been home. Low drama. Wednesday morning is literally freezing where we live, and the garage door is open again. I text her a photo captioned "annoying. Go work out," and she's gone when I get home. I do not get any text response all day. Nothing. As the third parent in the mix, my vote has probably rightly only ever carried little weight, but after suggesting she wasn't ready to go to college and being overruled. And the following day suggesting it again when she was suddenly $4,400 short since the prior day, overruled again. You see the pattern here? No consequences, ever. I have stated that a different approach is the only way to get a different result. So, I lock the door, she can't get in. Instead of arriving home at 10, she gets home at midnight. I'm fast asleep. She can't get in and sleeps at friends. Note we live somewhere very safe. I knew she had multiple friend options and that's what actually happened. I told her she needs to get her own phone bill. She's off ours. Wife is livid with me. So am I the asshole? It sounds like you have been patient and understanding with your stepdaughter, but it's frustrating when she continuously ignores your requests and shows no accountability. Taking her off the phone plan and locking her out may seem harsh, but sometimes tough love is necessary to bring about change. Keep trying different approaches and hopefully, she will start taking responsibility for her actions. Enjoy making the salmon for dinner. Some malicious forklift compliance. Years ago, in the early 2000s, when I worked on the loading dock, there was a big delivery of new tech and products for the new office layout. It included fancy upgrades, the latest computers and network equipment. There was plenty of expensive equipment, and my boss instructed me to ensure smooth trucking operations. So we had the whole team, along with a few extra hands. My responsibility was to unload the pallets and stack them out of the way, ready for their return to the owner. Company-owned pallets must be returned. At 6 a.m. after getting my caffeine fix, I started up the forklift and began stacking the CHEP pallets for collection. Around 8:30, one of the main representatives arrived early and parked on the dock, causing a problem since the trucks were scheduled to arrive at 9 a.m. I politely asked him to use the main car park, but he rudely told me to do my job. My job was to ensure unobstructed access to the loading dock for the truck drivers. I interpreted his response as, "I'm too important, find a place for my car." So, to avoid damaging the car too much, I slid a CHEP pallet under it, and with the help of the forklift, I lifted it and placed the offending BMW on a stack of pallets. I sang, "Nothing lifts like a crown," for picking it up and putting it down throughout the process, which had the rest of the crew in stitches. Many truck drivers arrived and immediately recognized that I was on duty. They always had the best stories, and some of them had a good laugh before grabbing a fresh cup of coffee. The day proceeded smoothly, and we worked the forklift to its limit. As we unloaded the last pallet, the tank on the forklift ran empty. Once I dropped off the last pallet, we unpacked it and used a tug, small electric cart puller, to move the forklift out of the way. I contacted my boss and requested a payment slip to get the tank refueled at a gas station. He came down with the form and the representative, who initially seemed pleased with the bulk computer and hardware purchase. However, his mood changed when he spotted his BMW. He was furious and threatened to have me fired. In response, I suggested reviewing the security footage. After my boss watched the footage, he pointed out that I had asked the representative to move and park elsewhere. With that, he looked at me and said, "Thanks for another day, see you tomorrow." The representative demanded that his car be brought down immediately. I explained that we couldn't since the forklift's propane tank was empty, and gas delivery was scheduled for the next morning at 6 a.m. My boss handed me the payslip for refilling the forklift tank and told me to get the gas in the morning. The representative continued hurling obscenities and threatened to charge us if his car was damaged. I assured him that it would take no more than a postage stamp to send his boss the footage of him obstructing the loading dock. My boss then directed his attention to a sign stating, "This is a loading dock. Park at your own risk. We are not responsible for towing or moving your vehicle. Fines apply." The following day, I detached the tank from the forklift and placed it in my car. I drove off to get it refueled. Upon returning with a charged tank of fuel for the forklift, I started it and brought the BMW down from its perch, ready for the representative to collect. It was 6:30 a.m. and he still hadn't arrived. So I decided to park the car in the nearest accessible spot on the street, which happened to be a ticketed spot, as our parking lot was not yet open. It was the only safe place available. I contacted my boss and informed him, saying, "Call the rep. His car is ready for collection. It's in spot X on the parking meter line." He replied with an okay. Then I got to work, sending off the pallets for the day. It was a half shift for me. As for the representative, he managed to retrieve his car before it was ticketed for not feeding the meter. I heard through my boss that the rep received a severe reprimand and lost his sales bonus for his disrespectful behavior. I really miss that boss. Wow, what a hilarious story. It's always satisfying when entitled people get what they deserve. Good on you for standing up for yourself and handling the situation like a boss. Sounds like your boss is a real legend too. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad I don't consider him to be my father anymore? I'm a 20-year-old female in my last year of my undergraduate degree, and I still live with my parents. During the summer after my first year, I worked full-time to save money for rent so I could move out. I made approximately $8,000 that summer, which was directly deposited in one of my separate accounts that I use for spending. My dad insists on having access to my bank account at all times. I couldn't refuse since I live in his house, and at that time, I didn't have enough funds to just leave, as much as I would have liked to. So he would constantly check my accounts, block my card, and make me ask for permission to make purchases. He would even yell at me when he saw me buying food on campus, etc. Last year I asked to check the account where my job money was being deposited, so I could see how much I had saved up. I always kept my pay stubs to track my earnings accurately. I was shocked when I discovered that around $6.50 was missing. Then I realized that my dad had been using my job money to pay for his expenses, hydro bills, new computers, and so on. I confronted him about it. He knew I was saving that money for rent, and he hadn't even asked me before spending almost all of it. Initially, he denied it and claimed that the money was safe elsewhere, but I knew that was not true, so I asked him to show me where every missing dollar had gone. Obviously, he couldn't provide any evidence. My home environment is extremely toxic, and it significantly affects my mental health. The one thing I had relied on was saving up money to move out on my own, and he took that away from me. We recently had a huge argument about it again. At first, he told me to shut up about it, but then he condescendingly admitted that he made a mistake. I told him I would never forgive him for what he did, and that I no longer considered him my father. My mom thinks I was too harsh. I explained to her that my comment was the result of over a decade of resentment towards him, and that his controlling nature is unbearable. It wasn't just about him taking my money, but the situation became the tipping point for me. However, she still believes I crossed a line because he's still your dad. So, am I the asshole here? Your dad violated your trust and stole your hard-earned money. It's completely understandable that you're angry and don't consider him a father anymore. Your mom is enabling his behavior by downplaying it. It's time for you to take steps to become financially independent and get out of that toxic environment. Child-free couples struggling to opt out of family vacations now that kids are involved. This story involves my parents, both in their 60s, my wife and I, both in our 30s, and my brother's family, both in their 30s, with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. A little over 2 years ago, before my brother had kids, my parents brought up the idea of a whole family vacations again. We hadn't done it in a while due to work and conflicting schedules. It went really well. So my parents decided to buy a lake house for everyone's enjoyment and as a place for these vacations. While I live close to my parents, my brother lives far away. My wife and I put in a lot of time and effort to prepare the house and have spent many weekends there with my parents. Last year we had the week-long family vacation, but it wasn't enjoyable for us. My wife and I are not interested in children, while my brother and his wife are extremely dedicated to their kids. They want their child to play in the main TV room, but without the TV on. And we had to be quiet with the TV volume when their child was asleep due to the shared wall between their room and the TV room. We could have used a distant bedroom, but it didn't have a bathroom attached. My sister-in-law breastfeeds pumps frequently, every 2 hours, and we didn't want to exclude her, so our boat excursions were limited, which dampened the lake atmosphere for me. It took a while for them to get ready, drive to a cove, anchor, have a quick drink, and then pack up to return to the dock. Both my brother and sister-in-law don't drink, and when they are around, my parents don't either. This is supposed to be a vacation, and I would prefer to have mimosas every morning and enjoy the pontoon party. With no TV and limited lake access, everyone spent all their time watching the kids play on the floor in the living room. I didn't enjoy this at all. Moreover, their child is scared and allergic to my very friendly miniature dog, who is smaller than the child. It confuses my dog why nobody wants him around when my parents usually love him. Now, plans for this year's vacation have been brought up, and I expressed that I didn't have a good time last year and won't be coming this year. I think it would be better if it were just my parents and my brother's family without me, so they can focus on catering to my brother. However, this answer didn't go over well. I don't wish harm on anyone, but if I wanted kids, I would have some. I want my vacation to be about my own desires and what I want. I'm struggling with finding a way to communicate this without offending anyone. What do you think I should do? I totally get where you're coming from. Family vacations should be enjoyable for everyone, and if you and your wife aren't interested in children, it's understandable that you didn't have a good time. It's okay to prioritize your own wants and needs, and I think it's fair to suggest a separate vacation with just your parents. Maybe you can have a calm and honest conversation with your brother about your preferences and find a compromise that works for everyone. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.